Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, June 3rd, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Bucknuts columnist and contributor Brandon Castel. B-Cast, Game 1 of the NBA Finals last night, Golden State 104, Cleveland 89. Even a Bulls fan like me who's jumped on the Cavs bandwagon isn't feeling very good this morning. How are you feeling about the Cavs? You still optimistic, or are you a little down in the dumps?
Oh, man, that was a rough game last night. I mean, anytime that Curry and Thompson don't go off, you got to feel like you got a shot to win that game. So a little depressing, but, game one at home, a team that won 73 games this year, you had to figure they were going to show up, in front of their home crowd at home. It's tough to lose to Sean Livingston and Leandro Barbosa and Andre Iguodala, but I'm not giving up the faith yet. I think that the Cavs can play a lot better. They got nothing out of their entire role players other than the big three. So, I think some encouraging things. I think Tyronn Lue was not quite ready for the moment, changing up his rotations from what we had seen all postseason. No Channing Frye or Jefferson. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a long series, and we've got some time, but it's definitely odds stacked against them to win for the next six.
Yeah, we'll see. If they can get the split, it changes everything. It'll be a daunting task, but hopefully they can get that done on Sunday night. All right, switching gears, the crux of the show. Let's talk about offensive play calling. Seems like a lot of fans, Ohio State fans, are still concerned, and I think rightfully so, about the setup with Ed Warinner and Tim Beck. Because, if you're an optimist, you say, well, look at the last two games. That's how it's going to be throughout this next season. They went up there, they blew the doors off a good Michigan team. They blew out Notre Dame. That was the only time Ed Warinner and Tim Beck were in the box together. Other people will say, well, look what happened the rest of the year. But there was also the quarterback carousel. They're not going to have to deal with that this year, which I think is going to be huge for the offense. I think it's going to be a lot smoother. Just your thoughts. Are you still concerned about, or are you concerned at all about offensive play calling or the Ed Warinner Tim Beck mix up in the press box?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually with you 100% that I think that 2 games is not a big enough sample size for me to come out and say, hey guys, it's going to be, it's going to be the greatest show on turf this fall, and we're ready to roll, and we're not going to even remember Tom Herman's name. I've got to see more. Now, obviously, I think those were great signs. I think there was a clear difference with Warinner and Beck in the box together. I think that was something that was missing, having Warinner down on the field. Going back to the beginning of last year, Warner's the offensive coordinator, and yet he's down on the field. Beck's in the booth. We're, a few games into the season. It sounds like Beck's doing more of the play calling, and that's not the way that I think they had thought about it going into the season. So that's a tough situation to find yourself in. I go back to, the very first couple meetings we had with Urban Meyer when he talked about not wanting his offensive line coach to be the play caller, that he's got too many duties in practice, too many duties during the game. So, I really think that, bringing on Stroud, I think that's a big difference to have Ed Warinner focused on calling plays, focused on the overall offensive game plan, and then allow everybody else to kind of fall in line underneath that. So I do think that is a really good sign going into this fall, that you're going to have more consistency in the coaching staff. You're going to have kind of guys in the right places, kind of looking at what it might look like. I think we did get a little bit of a glimpse at the end of last year. And then, I really think that it's going to be another year of trust. Now, I think that first year, if you go back to Herman's first year, there certainly wasn't nearly as much trust between Urban Meyer and Tom Herman when it came to play calling. There was a little bit of a disconnect in that first season on some of the big plays and key plays that were called. And we know that Urban has final veto power, but I think there'll be a little more trust in the coaching staff this year, especially having a guy like JT in there to run the offense.
Speaking of the offense, you started a very interesting thread on the Front Row message board yesterday, asking who will be the breakout player on offense. For the listeners who might not have seen your thread yet, I'm sure everybody's going to go check that out now if they have not. But who do you think will be the breakout player on offense? You can name more than one if you'd like to, but just give the listeners some insights. Who do you think is going to be the breakout player or players on offense for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, it's a great, it was a great conversation that got started yesterday on the board, and I'm hoping that more and more people will continue to jump in. So many options. I can't remember a season going into the year where there were so many options, so many unknowns, so many positions kind of up for grabs, and yet so many kind of young, talented guys that could jump into those positions. So, one of the guys I think that will emerge is Mike Weber. I do think I've seen enough from him to believe that I think he's going to end up winning the starting running back job. Now, give me a chance to see what happens in the fall when Briante Dunn's back, but I just have a feeling that Mike Weber's going to emerge, and so if he does, he's not going to get 370 carries like Zeke did last year, but if he can get 200 carries or 250 carries, then obviously I think he's going to have a big season. I'm a big Curtis Samuel fan as well. I think he's the one guy on this whole offense that has proven he can do it. He didn't get a lot of touches last year, but and then the guy, if I had to say a real breakout, because I think whoever touches the ball out of the backfield automatically is going to put up numbers. But breakout star, I'm going to go with Noah Brown just because I know that that's an easy one. The coaches have talked him up. There's so many other receivers guys are talking about with Torrance Gibson and Mack and some of the other guys in the mix with Johnny Dixon and McLaurin. But Noah Brown's a guy that, if he's healthy, he was going to be in the starting lineup last year on a team that was potentially contending to repeat as national champs. So to me, I think there's a reason to buy the buzz around Noah Brown more than maybe a couple long plays I saw to Johnny Dixon or spring game performance from Terry McLaurin. So, I'm going to go with Noah Brown as a guy that I think is going to have a big season just because everything we've heard to me indicates that there's a lot going on there. Where there's smoke with him, I think there's going to be some fire.
I want to ask you about the Baylor fallout. I haven't talked to you since all of this broke. I don't know if they're going to recover from this. And maybe 50 years from now. I know they have a new stadium and they're in a talent-rich state to say the least, but there's, tons of other schools in that state, you have to recruit against for that talent. For years, Brandon, we know Baylor was a terrible football program, and then, over the last 5 years, they've really, just changed things, but I think they're going to go back. I just don't see this is going to just crush their program, and I give them credit for doing the right thing with Art Briles, because I will say, and I've said this on the show before, I'll be honest, I was skeptical that they were going to fire Art Briles, because I thought even though he was clearly in the wrong, he clearly knew what was going on. I thought they would try and protect him, say, oh, well, he's the football coach. It was the people above him that failed. I guess, with the Joe Paterno situation, that's not good enough anymore, as Bax has pointed out, and I completely agree with that. But just give me your global perspective, just everything about the Baylor fallout. Do you think they're going to be able to recover from this? How bad is it going to be? And are you, like me, are you kind of pleasantly surprised that they actually fired Art Briles?
Yeah, I actually am. I think in today's day and age, it's not always expected, to see a program, especially a program like that has been down for so long in the past. They're on the rise. They have the right guy in there. They're contending, to be a top 10 team, really every year now. Since the last few years that they've built that program up. So I am surprised and happy that they decided to make that decision. Clearly that there was not a good culture at Baylor. There was no accountability in that locker room, in my opinion. Too many things going on to make a case for Art Briles to not know or to not have control of the program. And it goes back to, many of the other ones where we've seen pleading ignorance is not good enough in most of these cases. And so, I think about things like this versus, what we covered at Ohio State with guys getting free tattoos, and it still blows my mind. I realize that there was, some general wrongdoing in the sense of guys getting free tattoos, but it still blows my mind that was, one of the largest scandals in college football. And here we're talking about, sexual assault and, a culture that had allowed that to go on, and some of the other stuff that happens in college football. So I am happy. I'm pleasantly surprised they decided to go that direction. It'll be interesting to see if they can recover. I do agree with you that I think there's so many programs in Texas, you kind of have to grab that momentum and hold on to it for dear life. I thought this was really the moment for Baylor and TCU, because Texas has been down now for a few years. You have all this turmoil going on with the quarterback position at Texas A&M. So to me, it just felt like this was the moment if they were going to hold on to that success and sustain it. TCU and Baylor kind of had to ride this out. So I do think they'll kind of fall back to the pack now, but, plenty of talent there if they can. It depends on what kind of sanctions or what comes down, if anything, from this. But, there's enough talent there. If they can get the right coach, maybe a few years before they get somebody who really wants to get in there. But, I don't necessarily see this being a program killer, but I do think they'll fall back to the pack now and kind of go back to being irrelevant for a while until they maybe get somebody else in there.
Great wisdom, as always, out of Brandon Castel. Thank you very much, BCast. A couple quick programming notes. We have an open thread on the Front Row message board right now. Satellite camp season starts today. The Buckeyes, their staff will be at TCU at a camp down there, and they're also going to be in Atlanta tomorrow at the Sound Mind, Sound Body camp. So again, TCU today, Atlanta tomorrow, and satellite camp season is underway, and we have a live thread on the board, so make sure you check that out. And one more thing, Ohio State's baseball team, the Big Ten champions, will play Wright State today in the NCAA baseball tournament at 2 o'clock. Game will be on ESPN3. The winner will play top-seeded Louisville tomorrow. Louisville is ranked number 2 in the country. They're not just a number 1 seed in their little 4-team region. They're fantastic. But I think the Buckeyes, they're good enough where they could pull this off and get to a super regional. So again, Ohio State today, 2 p.m. against Wright State. Ohio State's the 2 seed. Wright State is the 3 seed. And I say they'll play Louisville tomorrow. The winner will play Louisville. That's if Louisville beats the worst team in the entire NCAA tournament, Western Michigan, who got in as MAC champs, even though they are 22 and 32 on the season. So we'll see what the Ohio State baseball team can do later today. Thanks again to Brandon Castel. Thanks to the listeners for tuning in to the show. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.